Time to get some popcorn, all right? If you're at home right now, you got a microwave, make some popcorn, make some coffee, come and hang out for a second. We've got today the craziest roster season of all time in CSGO history. I'm going to say it. Olaf said it on Twitter. I've said it. I've watched it. Okay, we've had some crazy off seasons in history, but this one takes the cake, and it's all because of the special circumstances. This season is the final CSGO season. After this, we don't know how much more CSGO we have into Counter-Strike 2 for the rest of the year. In light of that, okay, you might be thinking, why would you make the roster moves now? Why would you make the roster moves before the game is even finished being made? You don't know who's going to be good in that game. Well, I'll tell you this, okay? My theory is, because we can't totally be sure from the outside, but my theory is that sometimes you're forced to, okay? If since this is a natural break in the season before the next part of the year, there's going to be events throughout the rest of the year, but no more major. So technically, it gets a little complicated from that perspective. If somebody from a team that you want to pick up ends up leaving the roster or gets moved because one guy makes a roster move, well, then that creates a domino effect. And now you could be in a position where you can't get the player you want because they got scooped up. So roster moves happen in the offseason. I don't think it's ideal for these rosters that it all happens right now before the game's even released. But this is an opportunity to potentially, if you can scout the player correctly, pick up players or capitalize on a transfer in between now in CS2, where you might not be able to get those players at all after CS2 is out. So players are going to get locked up in big contracts. And so now we've got some fairy tale roster moves. We've got some sketchy ones. I think we've got a pressure cooker of decisions where not everything has worked out beautifully. Evil geniuses. They've had a tough year, huh? Okay, let's get started. So Cloud9 are... so there's this is 2 of 17 here. Shout out to Logan Ramhap for making this thread. This is so helpful because it's got the visual aids and all the roster moves. 12 teams in the top 30 reported moves. Many others making moves in the top 30. So these are moves that are confirmed and unconfirmed, and we're going to go through this list. Cloud9 as number 1. Minus Hobbit, minus Buster, plus Electronic, plus Perfecto. I think this is partially due to the fact that NAVI trying to move to an international lineup, and also Electronic and Perfecto being Russian players. That situation, I think it's been expressed by NAVI. It's been reported they might want to try to move away from having Russian players. I really don't think that this doesn't seem like it would happen because of performance or something like that, because I don't know if anybody has anything bad to say about Electronic and Perfecto. Please stand up. I can't point to anything. So here's an opportunity for Cloud9. Now, Cloud9, in terms of collateral, in terms of collateral damage, have to get rid of Hobbit. And Buster is coming off the lineup. Now, I already made a video on Cloud9 talking about what are they doing. And, I feel like, unlike Maui, okay, I feel like Cloud9 struggle because of the IGL, but in a different way. I think mentally, Cloud9 struggle and have struggled for the last year. When I talk about Rio and that failure at Rio, losing to Mouz in the quarters, into all of these playoffs, finishes, but no wins. For me, it's because of the mental resilience. I think it was losing to Vitality at Rio, where Vitality made an enormous comeback, T-side Vertigo, the enormous comeback on Ancient that Mouz pulled off versus them. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride for Cloud9. And I think that's mentally, Nafany isn't a good caller. Now, I think that tactically speaking and stuff like that, I disagree with the public sentiment right now that they don't have the ability to be a good team with their calling style. Because as far as I'm concerned, when Cloud9 are playing against FaZe, NAVI, Vitality, Heroic, G2, whoever, I don't see them as an underdog. I always think there's a chance that they can win. And I'm not really seeing the odds skewed so drastically against Cloud9 in the last 6 months that I think they will lose all of these matches. It really depends on recent form, time in the tournament. It's the same reason that Heroic failed to get grand finals victories. It's not really because they're a bad team, in my opinion. It's because they're not getting over a mental hurdle, which they did at Washington. Okay, Cloud9 never did that. Fine. Hobbit is obviously a sad one because I think he's one of the more capable players on the team. He's the third best player stats-wise in the last 2 years. He is the closest thing to a top 20 player outside of Shiro and Axile. But if they're going to make this move, fresh blood, you get Electronic, who has some experience now as an in-game leader. He was always the guy that I heard brought ideas to Navi in the first place, even throughout, and I think it was Blast at London 2020, where I heard from Boomich that Electronic was the best voice on the team in terms of ideas. So this could be huge. Nafany, only 21 years old. He brought this up in the interview at the end of, what was the event? Dallas, I think, where he said, I'm young, I'm new to IGLing, there's still time to get better. I believe that personally, and I think Perfecto Electronic both know how to win, can bring experience, can bring ideas. Perfecto obviously is a direct upgrade to Buster in every single way. So this one makes a lot of sense to me. I think this is an excellent roster move. I think we're shaded from the fact that Nafany might struggle as an individual caller, and Axile and Shiro might finally be able to, I think, at the same time, perform as consistently as they have been, meaning 2 top 5 players in the world, which is why there's been so much criticism for Nafany, but also now win tournaments. I think this is a massive win for Cloud9 overall, and I think, unfortunately, Hobbit going is really rough, and I'm not sure exactly why they, went with this, but I think it's still a win, if that makes sense. All right, now for Vitality, I had a thread on this. Well, not a thread. I had a longer than 250 character tweet on this one for Vitality because I think this is a great roster move. If we look at Dupree's stats year over year, he's atrophied. He's only gotten worse on Vitality. Now, if we look at Dupree's stats in the last 3 months, oh my God, Dupree's amazing at Counter-Strike. All they do is win. He's got 2 LAN victories. He got the 5th major. He's won a quarter of all the majors in CSGO. He's perfect. He's a dream child. I think, listen, it would be a bit disingenuous to say that Dupree and Vitality didn't have a little extra motivation coming into Rio and then coming into Paris for the only French organization to qualify to be able to win that major. Obviously, and Dupree, I think, he just had his child 33 years old. Sorry, 31, 32, 33, something like that. He's played in every single major in Counter-Strike. Amazing achievements and an amazing couple of last months where he was a big part of the Rio win. He was a massive part of the Blast Paris major win. And for that reason, Zonic cut him. But I think it's because when we look at the, his stats over the last 2 years, it's very possible Dupree falls off again. All right, so who is Flamesy? Flamesy, coming in from OG, ran his contract out. In my opinion, the perfect rifler to bring onto your team to bring some fresh blood into a lineup and some fresh ideas and just some vibrancy to the rifling style. And Flamesy has so much to prove. I think Dupree has nothing to prove at this point. I think there's other players on Vitality that are so veteran that you would wonder, are they going to take to a new game or are they going to congeal in their old ways? And I really can understand why Zonic made this change. And people are calling Zonic a backstabber. It's messed up because this must have been a very difficult decision to make if you're Zonic. Like, oh, maybe you think he's an evil guy and it was easy for him. But for the rest of us, what are you thinking, man? They won all their majors together. They have a long history. Obviously, they're really good friends and they're extremely successful colleagues. So this is one of the changes for me that it's because of the time. If no one else was making roster moves, I bet Vitality keep their team together. But if there's a chance that a player like Flamesy is out of contract, somebody else scoops him up, that could be a team that beats you in the future. That could be a player that really blossoms in CS2. I'm excited to see what Flamesy does on a lineup with a much better coach and a much better IGL and a much higher level of experience across the board for all their players and the best player in the world, That could be insane for Flamesy. I think this is overall a very promising move for Vitality. I'm a huge fan of it. I feel for Dupree in a massive way. It's just a fan of the game. But I think that you've got to be cutthroat, and you never know when a team is going to fall off. And I think that it's very possible that Dupree could have easily receded to the mean of his last 2 years of stats. And I think objectively speaking, I think it was quite obvious that this is a solid move, a solid risk to take, I guess I should say, because you don't know how it's going to turn out. And I also want to say it's got to be a hard move for Zonic. And I think we shouldn't be saying, oh, how could you do this to your friend? And instead saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry you had to do this to your friend. I think that's kind of how I feel. All right, so we move on to the EG main lineup. Breeze, Refresh, Nealon, and Wiz are out. Now they're going to bring in 4 EG Black members to play alongside Automatic. If you want to take a look at this here, this means they're bringing in 4 Blueprint players, which are the EG Black lineup, which are the kind of the academy team, if there's want to call it that, of the main lineup. Automatic coming forward to me makes a lot of sense. I'm not excited about basically anybody else on the roster. And bringing in 4 Blueprint players is also, I like Hex being part of this because when he played on EG Black for the Blast Showdown, they did such a great job. I think Junior has been showing that he has improved dramatically as an opper in North America. Unreal stuff that he's been putting together. I liked everybody, honestly, from EG Black from when I saw. I don't have any particular criticisms for like Walco, Rush, or I think they played their roles. I haven't watched too many of their games. I'm thinking maybe there's Fang actually got removed from Complexity because we're going to get to Alige joining Complexity. And I just like to say there is actually a world for me where it makes sense that Fang joins the Evil Geniuses lineup now that they're going to stay North American. Now, of course, what we didn't see with this lineup, if I can perform this from memory, EG almost got Electronic, Jax, Zorte, was it Perfecto? No, I don't know. That lineup almost came through. Electronic, Jax, and Zorte on EG almost actually happened. And then one thing went wrong, I think, with Electronic. Everything else fell through. And then the EG main lineup decided to promote the EG Black lineup in nearly in its entirety. So this is not their first option. But to be honest, without this, it would have been Complexity as basically the only NA team because Liquid are now officially European. And we would have had EG with a crazy mixed international lineup. And I feel like they're not in safe hands because EG haven't shown that they can manage lineups that well, I got to be honest. Even if they had good players, I would be concerned about them. So, all right, let's see what happens now. Fang, Alige has left Liquid after being a career legacy player for Liquid. It's the only team he's played for. Did the entire IEM Grand Slam run with Team Liquid. Got close to winning that major at Star Ladder. Got all of the career accomplishments that Alige has. The Random CS Summit to the Grand Slam. It's all to iBuyPower. Masters. It's all been with Alige. And now the only remaining member of the original Team Liquid, or that 2019 Team Liquid, I guess I should say, is Nafly, who will now be flying solo. All right. So now Fang, I think Fang, maybe he can get involved in this EG situation. Complexity minus Fang plus Alige. Now, Fang is actually a very inconsistent player. I think he's actually a player who has a lot more to show. He could be very good. I think he can be great some days in the clutch, some days not so great. I think he's got a good mind for the game. I've heard he's a fantastic teammate from the perspective of attitude. I think maybe, I don't know how drilled he is about his practice regimen or why he's inconsistent. Maybe it's that he's not working hard enough. Maybe it's that he's not in the right fit. But I think there's lots of potential there. I think it's still very early for Fang. So Alige coming in for Fang, I think is obviously an upgrade. Even though Alige has actually really fallen off this past this year, after Kinder joined the lineup, Alige started to split off half of his sort of aggressive T-side roles on like Vertigo, on Ancient. This was now not just Alige's job, like on Inferno, to run up B every single round and open up B site. There was too much volatility when he was doing that. He wasn't doing it at quite the same level that someone like Nico has been for his career. And maybe Nico's not the best example right now, but Yakinder started doing it. Then Yakinder's play started getting a little bit more obvious, I think, when he would like lurk up B on Ancient and just get ops. People started to figure out his patterns and his routines on T side. So splitting it up at first seemed like a great idea, into now both of them looking a little bit more obvious as Liquid started to play out, and now Alige leaving Liquid because I think he's lost his star player aura on the roster. Well, now he's going to be the best player on Complexity. I think he'll probably get a boost. I kind of worry about how hard this will be for JT to play with him. I've heard from Alige's teammates that he's a very hard player to play with. I guess I'll put it that way. I always grant for players that are very, that good, that sometimes they're going to have a bit of attitude. They're going to whatever. Not everyone's going to be a Zywoo and just be a perfect guy in and out of the server. That's fine. But I think that I would worry for an IGL that doesn't have the stripes, the guy who doesn't know Alige that well, who might not have the stature, who doesn't have the wins to be able to tell Alige what he should do. Like when Yakinder joined the team, Alige openly said it's so great to learn from someone like Yakinder. I'm not really seeing that happen with JT, even though I think JT has shown he's been a fantastic caller this year. So I'm kind of hoping, even though it's conjecture on my part, to see that Alige is willing to take to a new lineup, to respect his new teammates, their style of play, try to fit within the system, and also bring over some of his experience, but not be the exact same guy that he was on Liquid. I'm not sure how everyone there feels about it, but of course he's played with Grim before. That pretty much just went up in flames. That wasn't a good situation, and hoping for something better here for Complexity. But cool that they are willing to make a blockbuster move like getting Alige, because I know that this Complexity lineup was specifically born out of budget problems. They had the international lineup. They were playing Blame F like 30, 40 grand a month. They had people from Europe. They had where they were spending money out the ass. And when they went to this new lineup from NA, everyone's salaries were cut into a quarter. Everyone's getting paid 10K or less. They didn't do a boot camp coming into Antwerp. They didn't fly in early to get practice or even survive the jet lag. They really have been getting almost nothing in terms of and that's because Complexity got burned. They weren't winning anything even with their very expensive lineup. So I actually don't blame them. And I think it makes sense to see what, players playing for honor and pride and to be the best, and to see what they can do first and then pay them. I think obviously a lot of player salaries are way too high in the first place. But I would like to see things like making sure they get boot camps, extra days in Europe, all these things, so that they can be competitive at least. Now, Complexity have earned the right to get Alige's attention, for the Complexity to take the idea of paying Alige what I assume is a massive salary compared to his teammates, and giving that a fair shot. And I think this is earned by JT and the boys because they have been doing so well. So let's see how this works out. Not Liquid, as I talked about, again, the last standing member of the original lineup is now Nafly, as Nitro is off the team. Alige has moved over to Complexity. Rainwaker and Patsy, I don't have much to say. I think I'm very upset with this lineup in general, because now they're playing the EU RMR. Now, yeah, that's 2024 March is the next major. It's going to be in CS2 to make things even more muddy. I mean, Team Liquid were the best North American team, and now they're not even a North American team. There's just everything that I hate about this. And I don't have anything against Rainwaker, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. Rainwaker is getting a lot of flack right now, even though I don't think people have a bone to pick with him. It's mostly just with Liquid and the fact that we're switching now to a harder RMR, losing our NA identity, and competing with, if we want to bring up the name, Rainwaker and Patsy are not exactly blockbuster moves. Patsy more so, Rainwaker not at all. This kind of pick could be beautiful in the end, but now Yakinder's going to stay as IGL. I think Yakinder is going to be it would be a fantastic secondary IGL. To me, a lot like Stewie in the way that his teammates talked about him as somebody who brings good ideas and helps you win on T side and stuff like that, and is very brave and everything, and takes initiative by himself. These are great. I don't think Yakinder being an IGL doesn't feel right to me. I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. I think I can understand of him compared to their teammates on the roster why he would be. But then I would say maybe bring in an IGL if you're going to drop one. Maybe bring in an ultra blockbuster rifler if you can snipe one. And yeah, so I hate this. I think it's unfortunate. I think even Patsy's individual level came into question this year, even though he had such a high stature in 2022. So what do you guys say? I want to know what you guys think about this one. This one honestly kills me a little bit. All right, so Spirit are dropping Patsy, Wonderful Siren. They're going to be bringing up Zontix, Art Frost, and Donk. So this is the Spirit Academy lineup. Donk is somebody from the Academy League that I'm going to give myself credit here. I knew he was good even when his stats were bad. When I was casting We Play Academy League, he was very young. I think like literally 15 years old or something. Zontix even younger. I think Zontix was 14 years old. I could see Donk as a very, very smart player. I see him being a part of one of the best CIS lineups in the future. I think this could be a start for him. I think Art Frost is someone I was critical of for being a very flashy opper and, somebody who had this like sort of golf waggle every single time you would hit a crazy shot. And it just made my eyes roll when I was watching the Academy League. Even though his stats were excellent and he was doing extremely well, I was more doubtful of him, but he's got time to grow. He's very young as well. I think he's already gotten better right before our eyes. And Zontix as well. I think he actually came from Navi Junior to go to Spirit Academy. I hope I have that right. Zontix looked awesome, but obviously very young. Okay, let's see what Spirit do. There are still some things to try to figure out. Oh, actually, no, sorry. It'll be Magix and Chopper staying on the team with these three new players. This could be very interesting. I think it's going to take some time, but this is very in Spirit's person. Sorry, this is a very Spirit move. I guess you could say it's a very Spirit-esque move to try to pull off a roster like this. It's very in their DNA to stick to up and coming legends. Like Magix, the FPL superstar, Wonderful, the FPL superstar. Do you know what I mean? All right, so let's see what happens. Big, I haven't even taken a close look at this, but Keto, Hyped, and Favin are getting removed from this lineup. Now, I think Favin just had a child, so paternity leave for him. I don't know what that means for his future. Mantu, Sin, and Prosis. Prosis, another one from the Academy League, sort of to the same tune as Donk, where I feel like he looks smart. He looks like a smart player. I really like Prosis overall. I would take Hyped over I would take Hyped over Sin if it was one of the two, but of course Hyped as the opper. Sin would do hybrid opping sometimes. I think Hyped became very good, but Montu, actually, low-key, Montu deserves a chance at a bigger lineup, man. Montu was excellent stats-wise on OG. The criticism that he was too passive was correct. He was too passive, needs to take more initiative, needs to take more risks, has the ability, but not the gusto, okay? Kind of like Valda a little bit in the way that he's a bit too passive, but clearly very smart. Just needs to be able to win rounds for his team. When Degster came in for the Blast Spring final at Lisbon and took Montu's place and showed him what you can do if you have the skill and you also have the initiative, not scared of Simple, not scared of anybody. He showed what kind of run you can have. He showed what you can do. And I think Montu just needs to channel that. But I think after seeing what Degster could do with his old lineup, which was so sad, by the way, because I think Montu got sick and then Degster took his place and they kept him. Whatever. I think Montu has learned a lot in the off time. He's a great personality having in the scene. I think he's an excellent opper with lots to show and has barely any chances. So let's go. Let's see what this new big lineup can do. I'm interested. I'm very interested. Falcons is going to make a real shot at putting together a solid international lineup. Lauenex is somebody who is my little brother. I met him at the Red Bull Flick ISA 2021 in Finland, Helsinki. Okay. And he was excellent there, of course. He joined Sprout. He was amazing on Sprout. MHL is another Academy League opper. Well, he was more than an Academy League opper before, but he's actually an opper from Poland that I think, sort of like Montu, who I can't tell if he's British or Polish sometimes, deserves a second chance or a chance at a real tier 1 lineup. Boros is going to bring that brawn, okay? And I think that Boros really rounds this core out nicely, so I like what Falcons are doing right now. Of course, Kenny S is literally retiring from the game. 07 for Kenny S. Masuda and Python, I've got nothing to really add for them. For me, Masuda was not a great player on Vitality, got worse in his time on Vitality, had lots of great players to play with and learn from, didn't get better, didn't really watch him on Falcons. Glad that body is staying on the team. And let's see what Falcons can do. We've got some, latent stories potentially to discuss in the future, but it's all in CS2. All right, now on to NAVI. Electronic, Perfecto, and NPL. NPL wasn't a good player, wasn't good enough to join NAVI, didn't show that he was good enough, never had the stats. One event where he did well, which was the qualifier to the major. I'm not an NPL fan. I'm sorry. I know he's still young, and I understand people conflate criticizing young players with bullying. I'm not bullying NPL, but wasn't good enough to join NAVI. Never proved it. I'm not surprised that he's coming off the team. But what I am surprised about is the fact that IM, JL, and LXCB are joining the roster. What the hell is going on here? What the hell is going on here? LXCB, for me, okay, let's not overrate or underrate him, okay? Because the conversation around LXCB is impossible. It's just what's the word? It's corrosive to try to participate in a conversation, an accurate conversation about LXCB. On the one hand, LXCB is a guy who he never disparages his teammates. He just plays CS. He brought a Finnish lineup to the finals of a major with an all-Finnish lineup, never been done before with ENCE. Then he got cut from the team because they didn't like his calling style. Fine, he went to OG. He had middling results on OG, a couple of finals, couple of good results overall. No wins. Then he goes to G2, gets to play with Nico, he gets to play with Monacy. The team, again, middling results, probably could have been better. And I think for me, when I think about LXCB, I think he's a good caller. I don't think he's at the level of Kerrigan, Glaive in his prime. I don't think he's at the level of Snappy. I don't think he's at the Danish level is what I'm trying to say. But I think he's an A+ caller. I think to say that Nexa was a better caller than him, I don't think that's fair. I think Alexi's around that level where they're both very solid. I think tactically much stronger than strategically. And I think that Alexi definitely has an idea for the game that he wants to enact, and is very comfortable micromanaging, as we've seen in the past. I actually think that could take to Navi's style in a big way. And I think that if they see something in Alexi, I don't think this is something where Alexi's going to start running the team. I think this is going to be something where Blade has a ton of impact on the way that he calls, but he has a good foundation in terms of literally being a clear speaker and, in my opinion, a clear thinker. Alexi knows what he wants out of a round. I think where he's failed is when the team doesn't understand what he wants, or they don't agree with his idea or something like that. But in Navi, I think it'll both be a copacetic situation where he'll learn a lot and he has good bones for an IGL. I think he has an IGL's personality, really does. And honestly, if they see something like that in Alexi, I can understand it. That's what I see as well. So I'm seeing Alexi as an A to A+ IGL, now joining an S tier team. This will be a massive mark on his record, of course, if he can't win with Navi, if G2 already wasn't. But I think he's actually got more support as an IGL on a team with Navi who have more arcane knowledge about the game and a brand new way to look at things, but a new challenge in having to lead another international lineup. But it's not like his English struggles. Now, IM and JL, two players that this is very unexpected for Navi to overrate recent results with two players to come out of the major. IM, who nearly got MVP at Paris, and JL, who beat Liquid and got to quarters. J Legend, of course, as he nicknamed himself. Chance for these two to play for Navi. It's just I don't even understand how this happened at all. I'm kind of here for it. It's also an awkward time, though, because Simple is streaming Valorant more. He's not playing that well right now. And so is this going to be just a huge dumpster fire? Or why does this feel so desperate when it's, made with time left? They could have taken the penalty at Blast and had a seeding penalty to make their roster moves a little bit later on. Did they lose the offseason in the sense they tried to get someone else but couldn't get them? Did they really see massive potential in these two players? Is it the idea that in CS2 things are going to be different, so let's embrace that and try to pick up guys who are going to just trend in the right direction? I guess I can understand that. It just doesn't seem like a risk that I would normally expect Navi to take. Now, they have taken risks on their own Academy League, but that's where in their feeder system, they've had direct impact on how those players developed. And, you know, also culturally, this is crazy. We're in Finland, we're in Norway, Romania, Ukraine. It's a lot of differences, and it's something that Navi has never really done. So I'm not expecting this Navi to be better than the one that we had in 2023, if I can put it like that. But that's why there's so much to talk about right there. NIP are going with minus Alexi plus Hampus. Hampus is coming back to the lineup. There was some dissent from Config at the last major after they got this. They lost, and Config sort of threw Alexi B under the bus and said that he felt like we trusted the strat book too much and not the individual players. He later said that he didn't mean to call Alexi B out, and I guess regretted it. I'm going to put it like that because that's how it appeared to me. If we watch the games, in my opinion, Config, it seemed like he was both listening to the structure of the rounds that was put forth by the IGL of the team, in this case, Alexi B, but also completely uncomfortable kind of thinking for himself at all in some of those rounds. And for me, it really made me doubt Config a little bit. Maybe it was the wrong caller and Hampus could be a better option. But honestly, Config had a hand to play in their loss, okay? And they had a hand to play in their loss to Apex to qualify to top 8, in my opinion, just as much maybe a playbook issue as it was a Config problem. So I'm not totally sure about those tweets. I'm not totally sure about what actually happened, the truth of the matter. But I'm happy about Hedrick on this team, happy about Brolin on this team. I'm happy about Rez. I'm not unhappy about Hampus coming back in. I'm fine with Config staying if maybe we can see him play under another IGL. Whatever. Maybe lateral for me, but we'll see what happens. Astralis, they're a team trying to come back after being the strongest team in CSGO history with their lineups. They failed to they capitalize on the Copenhagen Flames dismemberment of 2021. They let those players go to other teams. They let Jabby go to Heroic, win 2 events. They let the Blastfall final and then the Blast Spring final. They let Hooksy go to G2 in the Blast World final, win Katowice 2023, nearly put up an arrow with G2. They let Nika Dawes and they let Roy go over to Fnatic and get, you know, major legends spots with Fnatic, and then Astralis have won nothing but like a CCT online. They finally got Device back, but they no major presence in the last 2 majors, no trophies lifted, and now they cut Glaive and they cut Altex. Now Glaive, I love, no one loves Glaive more than I love Glaive. Everyone knows that, but Glaive, he has been really phoning it in recently with like his performances. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I think he's just been phoning it in. His stats haven't been good enough. Him and Zipix were heavier than bricks on this roster. I think it was just a matter of time before something like this happened. The only difference for what I would have done with the players that are available here, you know, if we're not going too far out or spending too much money, I would have kept Altex instead of Borup, I think. But role-wise, this might make sense. And then Stare for Glaive, sure. Blame F calling, I don't like it. I don't think Blame F is a provenly a good caller. I think he's actually done worse compared to how good his pieces are on teams. And I think as an individual, there's still something strange going on where he's got great stats. He's incredible for CT sides. He's definitely a problem, though, for T sides. And I think overall, in terms of winning, there's no correlation between Blame F and teams winning. And I think that's a question that has to be answered, even if we don't know why that is exactly. I can't help but feel a little bit of myself thinking, okay, what's going on? Now, I will say in his defense, he's never had like a prime optimal lineup that was insane across the board. And for the better part of this last year for Astralis, him and Device were top of the scoreboard every single round. I think the difference was Device clearly showed what top-tier impact on top of top-tier stats was, whereas Blame F was pretty good impact for sure, but not like unbelievable impact and also just really great stats. So they were almost at a good place here, Astralis, with Buzz and Altex, but too much immaturity between the two as CS players. I really would like to see them use their Academy League player in Altex, who came in and honestly did pretty damn well. I think Buzz was too. Device knows Buzz from Face It, and that's why he said, and he's vouched for Buzz, and he says you haven't even seen what Buzz can do yet. So, a vouch from Device, I think that means something. If there's most players, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't be like, all right, your friend from Face It that doesn't have any team experience going to play tier 1 lands. No, but Device. If it's Device, if it's Zywoo, if it's Simple, if they see something special in you, I actually might give him a chance. So I get that, but I think, man, Altex for Buzz, bring in Stare, Blame F Device, Stare, Altex, and I guess you could have Glaive as the caller. If Borup comes as obviously he's not calling. I just don't really like the Blame F calling, okay? This one's a little confusing. I'm not feeling super excited about their outcome in CS2, but whatever, okay? Whatever. That's what I'm leaving it. Whatever. OG, minus Nico, minus Neofrag, minus Degster, minus Flamesy. I don't know why Degster is coming off the roster. Flamesy's contract runs out, and he goes to Vitality. Plus Nexa, plus Regali. I'm happy about this Regali. Academy League, big fan. Good caller, extremely good in clutches. Should be used more like a CIS opera in the way that he will save more, really close rounds, be a very passive baity opera. That's what I want to see from a Regali, honestly. And because he's very, very smart in the 1vx, is actually the top tier intelligence in 1vx's. So building around Fiku as well, I think that's good. I think he's also a great closer. So I think the 2 players that come in need to be faster players. Okay, Nexa is very comfortable sacrificing himself, being aggressive, but they need a replacement for Flamesy, and they need a replacement for Degster, not in role but in energy. And I think that they can find that with 2 aggressive players, then we're talking, and they actually have a pretty good lineup. But this is going to be a real beater lineup for a little bit. Like, they've got a lot to prove, get back on the horse, new players. They're probably not going to make any huge buyouts happen. So, yeah. All right, GamerLegion, minus Imma, minus Shuhei, plus 2 players. Without those 2 players, I got nothing to say about this lineup. For me, it's all about Shuhei, and I think we only talk about Imma because of Shuhei. That's my cold-ass hard take, okay? That's what I think. Shuhei is the reason we talk about this lineup. Primarily, Imma did an amazing job of the major, but we just think about him as a great tier 2 player without Shuhei at the helm. I think Shuhei is just an insane caller, best caller in Poland. I think I've been tweeting about him for so many years. He's the #1 player out of the Academy League I've been rooting for. I'm glad to see him back on Mouz. I'm sorry, Dexter, but this lineup, I feel sad that Shuhei is not, going to Navi or something like that. Honestly, like with the roster moves that have happened, there's an argument for him to go to a million places. He could have gone to OG. He could have gone to, but whatever. He's going to Mouz, and he's going back to join a roster of players that should have always been. So now Exertion, Frozen, Torzi, JDC. This is awesome. I think this will be great for them. Some problems with Torzi recently. JDC's stats have started to fall off a lot. Whatever. But with Shuhei, I'm sure they're going to play better because he's an amazing caller. And he's an amazing caller that will be up there with the Glaives and Kerrigans and Snappies and everything, in my opinion. So that's what I believe in him that much. That much. You know what I mean? That much. Okay. Furia, minus drop, minus safe, plus Fallen. Dude, Fallen recently has actually been amazing. I'm just going to say that. Fallen recently has actually been amazing. I think he's a more impactful player than Safe, actually, genuinely, straight up 1-to-1. I don't see him. I don't know how he's not falling off, but I'm a big fan of Fallen right now. I think he improves their map pool. I think he can add to the calling so much. He can bring new ideas to the team. He knows the meta. He's a threat on Imperial. Imperial have been a threat. I'm actually not doubting Fallen. I don't know. He's a one veteran player that I think has been, if someone deserves a chance, it's him. Now, I'm just surprised that he wants to play because Fallen has been expressing the fact that he's been playing CS for the better part of his life and that he's done everything and he wants to have the rest of his life. But now he's joining a team that's a very serious team that's going to take up a lot of time. So I'm just wondering about commitment things here. Sad to see Safe go ultimately, but he really was a tier 2 beatdown player. When he played against better teams, he started to fall off. Drop good, but certain spots, too much inconsistency, a lot of tilt actually at a drop, and spots like Beyond Mirage, sometimes he would just have an entire half where he'd lose the game. And It just can't happen. So maybe drop needs some more time. I see a good player in there somewhere. He's not there yet. I'm happy Yuri and Urado are going to stay together. Art getting an injection from Fallen in terms of helping him with calling. For me, it's the same energy as the Cloud9 Navi sort of fusion. And I think that Electronic will help NAVI in the same way Fallen will help Art. So let's see what happens. Crazy stuff. All right. Subscribe to TLDR. Okay. Got to give them a shout out. They run a podcast that I've been on as well. This thread was insanely helpful for making this video, and this has been would have been a nightmare to make it with otherwise. So thank you so much, Logan, for putting this out there. Give him a follow. And yeah, I appreciate you guys all for watching. This is ROSTERMANIA coming into CS2, trying to make sense of it. Which take did you hate the most? Which take did you like the most? Let me know. Also, store.boxer.gg if you want to buy a shirt. And I'm going to be doing a lot more cool things with my AceZone headphones because these are the best CS2 headphones on the market. I got asked in interviews what the best headphones were to use in CS2, and this is the only answer. Everyone who's got them has been happy with them. Everybody who's asked me what's wrong with CS2 audio, I haven't had an answer for them because these AceZone headphones have been incredible. They've got great all-day comfort because the cushioning is so good. These are engineered for Counter-Strike players specifically. You will hear footsteps that you won't hear on other headphones. You won't die to people flanking when you couldn't tell if they were flanking. You've got a mic that can pick up all of your voice and nothing else in the room, whether it's a train outside or a vacuum or someone yelling in the other room. And this is engineered for CS players specifically. So pick yourself up a pair of AceZones, okay, because you won't regret it. I've got the $300 pair and the Aspires. And unless you're going to a local LAN or something like that, or something bigger, you're a tier 1 player, you don't need the more heavy duty cans, okay? So go ahead and grab those. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And remember, you always have enough money for a deagle.